Off top, I played against Kurt Warner one time. I was playing for the Falcons. It was wild card round of the playoffs. I balled. We lost. Play the music.
This is the Domonique Foxworth Show.
All right, so we had a very great conversation. Me and Charlie, kinda. Charlie got boxed out for much of the conversation, but we did a lot of quarterback talk with my man, Kurt Warner. I think I can call him a friend now. He's a friend. With my friend, Kurt Warner. Enjoy.
I learned so much.
All right, so first of all, we're joined by Hall of Famer, Super Bowl champ, Kurt Warner. Thank you so much for joining us. I have an embarrassing confession to make. We're going to start this interview with me embarrassing myself. Kurt's been so flexible rescheduling this interview, in part because I didn't show up for the last interview. And the reason why I didn't show up, and I haven't told Kurt what happened, but so I'm in Miami. I came down to Miami on a quick trip to help out a friend, and I needed a haircut. So I text someone to find a barber. The barber gave me his number, and Kurt and I had been texting also about scheduling this interview. And then the morning of the interview was also the day I was supposed to get the haircut. So I didn't save the barber's number, and the barber texted me and said, I don't think this afternoon can work. And I was like, okay, cool. No problem. When are you free? And he was like, Thursday at 2:30. I was like, all right, locked in. And then I saved his number under Kurt Warner. And so then the interview came around and came and went, and then I went to go find the barber's number and realized, oh my gosh, I just canceled an interview with Kurt Warner. So I'm ashamed and embarrassed. And the way that I deal with that is by telling you about it.
Not a problem, brother. Things happen.
Yeah, I appreciate it. But I enjoy watching QB Confidential on YouTube. And the reason why I wanted to have you on initially is because I think I know what I'm doing when I'm evaluating quarterbacks, but I obviously don't, because I have to watch QB Confidential sometimes on YouTube to learn these things. So I guess, are there things about evaluating quarterbacks that you can share with me and the viewers that'll help us so that we can be the smart people when we're watching the games?
Well, as you know, Dominique, there's so many things that go into play in the quarterback position. And I think that's the hard thing when everybody out there just wants to evaluate the quarterback. It's nearly impossible to do unless you understand the nuances. And so when I go to break down tape, the first thing that I have to do is I have to decipher what the play concept is. Because if you have no idea what the quarterback's supposed to be doing, then there's no way to evaluate whether they did the right thing or not. You know, we can stand back there, oh, he should have thrown it to this guy because this guy's open on tape. Or, or should have taken this drop because, he was ready too early, or whatever those things are. And so the first thing you have to do is come to understand what concepts are, what they're trying to do within an offense. Now, Dominic, you know as well as I do watching tape, sometimes you'll watch tape and you'll go, I have no idea what they're trying to do. I couldn't tell you as a quarterback what I would do with this concept. Right. But that's the first thing that I'm always trying to break down. And so I think that's what really can bring people into that quarterback room so much better, is when you can look at the concept and go, all right, people, here's what we have. And here are the options. And then from there, you're able to now evaluate, okay, is the quarterback, are his eyes in the right spot? Are his feet doing the right thing? Did he throw this on time? Should he have been to the other side of this play due to the coverage that you're seeing? And so that, to me, is where it all really starts. And that's a hard thing to understand unless you really, truly know football. And unless you truly understand what a team is trying to do. And then, beyond that, I still sit and kind of shake my head and want to be a fly in the room in all these meetings to go, okay, what were you trying to do there? And why did you run this route this particular way? Because all of those little nuances can affect what a quarterback does, or what he sees, or how easy it is for him to get a read off of a defensive player based on how you run a particular concept. So that's really where I always start, is that I think you have to step back and, instead of just kind of looking at the tape and seeing somebody's open, try to decipher what the play call is and what, and again, I always say this in my, YouTube breakdowns or on my website, that I'm not in the meeting room. So I don't know exactly what the coaches are telling these quarterbacks to do, but I am a smart football guy.
Yeah.
And I know that if you gave me that play and you put the ball in my hands, I have a pretty good sense of what I would do on different concepts and where I would go and who I should be looking at. And that's really the perspective that I come from.
Is there a quarterback that in the league who you think his ability or is not fully appreciated, or there's a misconception about any quarterbacks in the league right now, where either we think that he's not as good as he is, or the other way around, is someone is being propped up by the things around them?
I just think, maybe the biggest thing to me when you ask that question is I would say that the thing that people don't appreciate enough, and maybe this is just my background, because you probably know when you watch tape, you probably enjoy watching people that played the game like you did. When I watch tape, I appreciate guys that played the game like I did. They played it with their mind first. They played with timing and anticipation and getting the ball out. Whereas in this league now, we've got some tremendous athletes and guys that can throw the ball a mile and that can take off and run and hurdle you or run you over. And we fall in love with that part of it. And that stuff is fun to watch. There's no doubt about it. I mean, we've got some freaks playing the position like we've never seen before. But I think the thing that is underappreciated are the guys that play the game mentally and the guys that know where to go with the football. And it doesn't always look flashy and it doesn't always impress you because they're not running around to their left and throwing it or throwing no-look passes. But to me, that's more impressive than anything else.
Who are you thinking about? Who's the player right now that you're thinking about that does that really well?
Yeah, well, I mean, Tom Brady was a guy that, what I loved was that, just even a couple years ago when he's leading the league in passing and touchdowns and stuff, we're talking about all these other guys, and yet here's Tom still at 40-whatever years old, still playing great football. Why? Because he wins with his mind. Joe Burrow was another one of those guys. I think when we're talking about, kind of this era, we look at the Lamar Jacksons and the Patrick Mahomes and the Josh Allens, and we see athleticism. And he's the one guy, I think, in the mix where we still see him as one of the top quarterbacks in the league, but a guy that plays that way. He plays by getting the ball out of his hands and being accurate with the football and knowing where to go with it and beating pressure by throwing the ball quick instead of, trying to avoid the pass rush and then making a play. So that's something that I think is underappreciated now because we're seeing a level of athleticism and physical talent that we've never seen before. But I'm a guy that always believes if you can do the mental part if you can play the mental part of the game, you always have a chance. That you always have a chance to be successful. And I think we continue to see that in the league, even though a lot of people are saying, oh, that kind of player is dying. I don't think that player will ever die. I think that kind of quarterback, now again, you got to have the physical skills to go with it, but that kind of quarterback will always have a chance to be successful because it won't always depend on, can I escape? Can I make the special throw? It's about doing the right thing over and over and over again.
Yeah, I when I look back on my career, the plays that I'm proudest of are those plays that required that, like, I outsmarted the defense, and I tell stories about working with the safeties to disguise the quarterback. And Charlie certainly doesn't want to hear this story again, but when we trick Peyton Manning into throwing interception, that feels great. For you, are there plays like that from either your career or plays that you have seen recently where you just are wowed by the ability to anticipate? Because that cat and mouse is what I'm thinking of. I remember the Peyton stories, like he's expecting this, we showed him that, which meant that he was going to do this, which meant we did that, and then we got an interception. That feels great. So do you have a story like that for me?
I do. I will give you a story. My first year starting, we played against Tampa in the championship game. This is an infamous game of, the greatest show on turf, scored 11 points in the championship game. But we only had 5 points in that game into the middle of the fourth quarter. And so in the middle of the fourth quarter, we're starting to move the football a little bit. And there's a play where John Lynch comes down playing free safety. He comes down to the weak side and he blitzes from the weak side, what we would call a 4-weak pressure. And so in our offense with the Rams, we always ran side adjustments. So we were a big hot team. We didn't try to, change the protection to pick everybody up. It was like, if you're going to bring that, we're going to attack you, and we're going to adjust our receiver on the backside, or we're going to throw a hot to the front side. So John Lynch comes on a pressure. But right before the ball was snapped, a timeout was called. And so, the 4-week pressure comes, and, of course, we saw it, that it was coming. And so we go into the huddle, and it was actually Ricky Prohl that was playing for us at the time. And, Ricky hadn't caught a touchdown pass, all year long. If you look at Ricky at that point, he's probably one of those guys that you go, okay, he's the more possession receiver. He's not a speed receiver. But we had talked about all week that if they brought that pressure, that 4-week, we were going to run a go route as our side adjustment, because they like to jump, and they knew when you had an issue and they were going to try to jump the hitch or the slant. So Ricky and I were talking, and we're like, they're probably not going to do it again. Like, we saw it, it showed itself. They're probably not going to do it again. But if they do it again, would you want to run the go route? And we're talking back and forth, and I'm like, screw it. We're having trouble moving the football, and we're having trouble scoring. So just run the go route if that happens again. And sure enough, we come out of the timeout, show the 4-week. They bring the blitz again. Ricky runs the go. I think it was Brian Kelly that he was playing against at the time, but kind of settled his feet, expecting us to do something short. Ricky's able to get over the top of him, and that was ultimately the touchdown pass that would lead us and get us into the Super Bowl and end up winning a ring. And so, that's one of those kind of cat and mouse.
Yeah.
All right. Know it's coming. Okay. We know what we've got to do. How do we want to adjust to it? We were able to make the proper adjustment there and then and put us in the Super Bowl.
I would love to see that offense in modern football.
Yes.
What do you guys look like today?
Yeah, I mean, it would be scary. The one thing that I would say though is that what I love so much about playing in that era. I mean, there's a couple things. First thing is that you guys had a chance. Like defenses had a chance. Then
I missed it.
You could be physical. Obviously, you could hit guys. You could change the complexion of things. You could be physical at the line of scrimmage. So I love that part of it. I love the fact that we were able to do what we did in an era where you could really play defense. I think the other thing that I loved is that we were a team that attacked down the field.
Yeah.
When you watch the game now, so much of the game is played within 5 yards of the line of scrimmage. And, it's great and it puts up yards and it, makes the completion percentage of these guys skyrocket. But I'm not sure I would have had as much fun throwing bubble screens and now routes, 15 times a game as opposed to dropping back and challenging myself by making those throws down the field, which is what we were so good at. And so I think it would be scary because we had unbelievable talent. We had great timing. You couple my accuracy with the ability of guys to run after catch. I mean, who knows what it would have looked like. But, there's a cool aspect to knowing you kind of ushered in this new brand of football. What we did at that era, even at a different time, kind of ushered in this idea that you can throw first and still win. You can be successful through efficiency throwing the football. And so, so it's kind of nice to know that we were kind of, that team that spearheaded what we're seeing now in terms of how people play football.
I'd always kind of thought that accuracy was the most important trait for a quarterback because accuracy we could have perfect coverage and it beats everything. But I always kind of thought also that it was not something that could be fixed. And I guess I was wrong. Like, what's your position on that? Like, Josh Allen obviously is the guy who comes to mind as the one example of addressing their accuracy issues. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I'll say first and foremost that it is really hard to get better at. I mean, you're right. Josh has kind of thrown that whole theory out the window, even though he probably shouldn't because he's just simply an outlier.
Yeah.
Like, very few people do you see are really inaccurate in college or, throughout their career. And then all of a sudden they make this switch and become extremely accurate. You don't see that very often because accuracy is so much about timing and technique. And it's really hard to change your technique and get better at your technique and learn those things that lead to accuracy because it takes so much time. We're all creatures of habit. Right. It's easy to do when we go out in the backyard and we're working with our quarterback coach and we got no pressure and you don't have to worry about anything. Oh, your technique's good. Your feet are good. All of that stuff's great. But then you always fall back to the habits that you have. And so it's a really hard thing to practice and to get better at as you get older because there's only so much time to practice.
When you coach quarterbacks, do you coach them to have the Kurt Warner grip or do you allow them to keep their own grip?
I don't worry about the grip. To me, it's all about the feet. It's all about the hips. It's all about, the weird phrase I always use is take your arm out of it. I don't want them throwing it all with their arm. I want them throwing with their body. I want their power to be created with their body so they're not, having to direct everything with their arm. But yeah, don't worry so much about how they hold the football. That to me is more of a preference thing. But the thing I'll say about Josh is that there's certain aspects of Josh's game from a technique standpoint that have always been solid. His biggest thing early in his career is he would never bring his feet with his arm. He got so used to just that cannon of a right arm that he would try to make every throw with his right arm. And so you would see one beautiful throw and then the next one he'd miss by 10 yards.
Yeah.
Now he's just doing a better job of bringing his body and feet with the arm. And so with that technique that he had, now you bring it all together. And that's what's created, I think, that huge jump for him. But I don't think it's an easy thing to do. I think Jalen Hurts did a pretty good job of it going from 2 years ago to last year as well. He's still got a little bit of a longer release and some things that I think, can be issues from an accuracy standpoint. But overall, I think he did a great job of working to get better at it. And so it shows that you can improve in those areas, but it takes a lot of work.
I've completely boxed out my co-host because I want to nerd out with you on football stuff. So I'll let him get in in a second. But the offenses that do the things that you want offense to do, that give quarterbacks answers, attack in the right ways. There are obvious answers to this question. Are there some offenses or offensive coordinators who wouldn't come to mind? Because I think Andy Reid comes to mind immediately of that offense gives answers to everyone. Who's the offense that I would look smart if I went into a football room and said, hey, you guys aren't talking about?
Well, the first thing is, knowing what answers look like. But I would say Zach Taylor does a good job with Cincinnati. I think they do a great job. And again, a lot of it can be dependent on the fact that their quarterback knows what he's doing and what he's seeing and how to get the ball out of his hands. I actually love, what they were doing with the Chargers. I love the scheme that the Chargers had a year ago. And the way they gave answers and the way they used, I'm a big check down guy, using your back in specific ways to help your passing game. I thought they did a great job. So I'm going to be interested to see, with Kellen going there, what the changes are, knowing what they did in Dallas. And I think Kellen does some great things too. I think they have some really good schemes that they ran in Dallas. I would like to see them do a little bit better from a hot standpoint right there.
Is there a philosophy for you? I noticed you talked about this and it got me excited. When you were getting blitzed in that playoff game against the Buccaneers, you're going for the big play. And I know if you get surprised and you have a hot, but if you anticipate the blitz conceptually, you'd like an offense to try to make the defense pay.
Yeah, make the defense pay. But, again, my mentality was if I get the ball into the hands of my playmaker faster than you can make your adjustment, I always felt like those were big plays. When I played with St. Louis, we got a lot of big plays on hot, quick throws because you were out of position trying to disguise your pressure. I saw your pressure, and I gave it to Marshall or I gave it to Oz or Isaac or one of those guys quickly. You're going to pay. And so it didn't have to always be a big throw down the field as much as it was an aggressive mentality that you blitz us, we're going to win. And the win is getting a completion and then forcing you guys to tackle us because so often you guys are out of position when you're trying to disguise a blitz.
Yeah.
More so than, if you know what you're doing, us being off guard. And so it was always trying to make the defense pay when they pressured you. Like, I welcomed that because, when you pressure, you got less guys on the other end.
Yeah, we're compromised.
You were compromised to some degree. But I looked at it more as if I'm not worried about holding the football and throwing it down the field and making you pay with a 50-yard throw. I want to make you pay by getting the ball out of my hands and then letting my guy, making it easy, getting an easy completion and then letting my guy make one guy miss, and now we're getting a big play.
The Super Bowl last year drove me crazy as a defensive back because it felt like the Super Bowl was decided by the Eagles' inability to properly address the motion that the Chiefs were deploying in the second half. They didn't know what to do with it. And I don't know. It drove me crazy from a defensive perspective. I guess I'd like to hear how you experienced watching that. Because when I was watching the film, I was like, just this is not crazy hard motion. Figure it out.
Well, it's not crazy hard motion, but, Dominic, that is a tough adjustment to make with the way the rules are now. because teams, throw these one-step bubble screens and all of that stuff so often that, the motion that you're talking about is what the Chiefs were doing is they were starting a guy on one side and they would motion him over to the other side and then they would snap it quickly. And the Eagles were playing man-to-man coverage. And so they were trying to, okay, what do I do? Like if I'm playing man-to-man and that guy, gets, over the offensive line, I got to sprint over to the other side because if they do a one-step throw, which they did in that game, now I got to be right there to make the tackle. Otherwise, it's a walk-in touchdown. Right. And so, do you let that guy run all the way over? Because if you let him run all the way over, as we all saw later in the game, you start the motion.
Yeah.
The defensive back's in a dead sprint trying to get to the other side. You stop him, you bring him back, and he's wide open. Or do you rock the coverage, which for those listening at home, the corner's in man-to-man coverage. The guy starts in motion. The safety takes it over and becomes the man-to-man guy on the other side, and the corner goes back and plays safety. But the same idea is that you still have to rock and get back to that middle safety position.
And you also have a safety covering a receiver, which is not a matchup that you want when it's Kadarius Toney. Yeah.
But so we have the ability that if we time our motion well enough, where we get to the middle of the field and that corner's rocking back to the middle of the field, and all of a sudden we stop and go back in that direction, we're going to gain an advantage once again. So to me, it's a really hard motion to figure out how to stop. Because of the way that the game is played now and because of all these quick one-step throws.
I like that. I didn't expect getting Kurt Warner as an ally to loosen up the rules on the defense. I like where we ended up. Anyway, Charlie, what you got, buddy?
Yeah. So, Kurt, you had a pretty unique and circuitous path to NFL stardom, and you probably saw more and more different quarterback development plans than a lot of guys who end up being Hall of Famers and Super Bowl MVPs. Why do we suck at developing quarterbacks? Why do we suck at coaching quarterbacks? And is there a fix to make sure that some of these guys who look like they have it don't bust at such a high rate?
Well, I think the biggest thing, and so, you talk about, my path. So my path started with the fact that I sat on the bench for 4 years in college. So I had 1 year of playing in college. So, I got my first tryout with the Packers, and ultimately got cut. But I joke all the time is that, so when I went to the Packers in 1994, Brett Favre was taking over as the quarterback. I think it was a year away from when he won his first MVP, but he was there and Ty Detmer was there and Mark Brunell were there. So a couple Pro Bowl guys and obviously a Heisman Trophy winner. And so, when I went there and ultimately got cut, it's always one of those things like, oh man, it's so disappointing to get cut and, will I get another shot? But the ironic thing was that, so I went and played arena football in Europe and then came back and played 12 years in the National Football League. Brett Favre did not miss a single start from the time I was in camp in 1994 until the day I retired in 2009. So that entire time, and of course it wasn't all for the Packers, but that entire time, he didn't miss a single start. So I look back so often and go, even if I had made it with the Green Bay Packers, I would have never seen the field. I would have never had a chance to play football. And, in getting cut, I went and played 3 years in arena football and I played 1 year in Europe, after the fact that I sat on the bench for 4 years in college. And what I always say is the best training ground for any player, but specifically for a quarterback, is to play football, is to get opportunities to see things and to understand the game. The beautiful thing about arena football was it was backyard football. We never handed the football off. You were expected to score every time you touched the football, and it was all about the quarterback. And so that was like the perfect training ground for me because it was like pressure. It was like a 2-minute drill. It was, fast-paced. It was, the ability to score and throw all the time. So I got so many reps in that 3.5 or 4 years that I was out of the NFL that there was no backup in the history of the world that had more reps than I got. So when I got back and got my chance in 99, 98, 99 with the Rams, I was so much more seasoned as a quarterback. And I think that's the biggest problem is that, we don't have training ground for these guys. We don't have opportunities for, these backup quarterbacks, so to speak, to develop until we just throw them into the mix. And there's only so many spots to throw them into the mix. And so, whether it was arena football, NFL Europe at the time, I can look back. Brad Johnson won a Super Bowl. He was a quarterback that played in NFL Europe. Jake Delhomme went to a Super Bowl. He was a quarterback that played in Europe. I played in 3 Super Bowls. I was a quarterback that played in, it was tremendous training ground for guys that weren't starting in the National Football League to get quality experience playing the game and experiencing different things that come up in the course of a game that you're just not ready for because you haven't played. And so I've been kind of amazed that the NFL got rid of NFL Europe, and we have never really grabbed a hold of another one of these leagues to go, this is our league to prepare guys, and it could be all positions, but specifically offensive line and quarterback. You need reps and you got to play. And so, I keep holding out that, the NFL at some point will buy into the USFL or the XFL and go, okay, just like with NFL Europe, if the Rams had my rights, there was a specific team in Europe that they could send me to. Yeah. And so they would send me over there. I would get reps. I would get to play. And then I would be allocated by that team and I would come back and play for that team. But it gave me quality reps to be able to play football. And I really think that we need that. And so of all the things that you can do and all the great trainers that are out there and all the work you can do in the offseason, nothing will ever replace playing football and being put in situations to have to react in pressure situations.
I'm on the Kurt Warner for Commissioner campaign. Yes. As soon as Roger steps down, I'm on it because first we're going to loosen up the restrictions on defensive backs, and then we're going to find a farm system to develop more quarterbacks properly. I'm down with that.
All right, hard pivot. Did you really miss a tryout for the Bears because you were bit by a spider?
Gosh, I did. So the story goes that I was playing arena football at the time and obviously just, waiting for an opportunity to get another chance to compete in the NFL. And, as the story goes, it was actually an opposing coach in the Arena League because I had become really good in the Arena League that knew somebody with the Bears and actually made the call and said, you need to look at this guy that's on another team so you could get him out of our league and give him a shot. So the Bears called me up and asked if I would come in for a tryout. And I was like, yeah, I'm in. Any day you tell me when, I'm there. And so, I got off the phone and I go running into my wife to tell her, how excited I am. I'm, going in for a tryout this Friday. And, she just gave me kind of this funny look, like she's just staring at me. And I'm like, why are you not excited? Like, this is what we've been waiting for forever. And she's like, we're getting married on Saturday. And I was like, oh yeah, forgot. It just kind of overwhelmed me at the time. So forgot. So I had to obviously reach out to the Bears and go, okay, can't do it this week, but any other day I'm in. So we worked it out for the following week. I'm like, honey, got it worked out. I'm going to try out for the Bears next week. She gave me that look again. She's like, we're going to Jamaica for our honeymoon, dude. Like, come on, man. Like, I know football is important, but not more important than this. So again, call the Bears back once again, whenever. I am in. So we set it up for the Tuesday after we were coming back from a honeymoon. So sure enough, the last night that we're in Jamaica, I wake up that morning and my right elbow is swollen about the size of a grapefruit.
Oh no.
I'm sweating. I've got a fever. And so, just feeling awful. And, I end up, going home the next day. Elbow is still swollen. I'm still sick. I can't really move. And again, you go to the medical people there and they don't know. They're like, you got bit by a spider or a scorpion or a centipede or something, whatever. But ultimately I had to call the Bears back and go, okay, I can't work out this week because I got bit by something on my honeymoon on my right elbow and I can't throw the football. And so needless to say, 3 times was enough for the Bears to go, who is this dude? Like, who is this joker that we're trying to give an opportunity to? Yeah. And he just can't make it work. And so the Bears never called again. But a couple weeks later is when I got a call from the Rams, went in and worked out for the Rams. And I guess, as they say, the rest is history.
The Bears lost. Anyway, Kurt, thank you so much. I don't want to take up any more of your time. Quarterback Confidential on YouTube is something that I watch, so you guys should watch and learn more about quarterback play, and hopefully we can have you on at some point in the regular season. You can teach us some more things. I appreciate your time, man.
You got it. Thanks for having me on. I look forward to watching you throughout the season, and I think it's going to be a great one.
All right. Thanks, buddy. All right, that was good. I thought we had fun. I like Kurt. Thanks again to Kurt. And I'm not joking about the YouTube channel he has. It does have good stuff on it sometimes that you can learn a bit more and do what I do, repeat it on TV as if it was your idea. No, I don't actually do it. I'm just joking.
He offered to join the show whenever. So, I mean, I guess Kurt Warner, about to be our co-host.
Yeah. Officially. Is he the first friend of the show? Like, I think he's our first friend of the show.
Yeah. Kevin Clark, enemy of the pod. Kurt Warner, friend of the pod.
Friend of the show. I love it very much. All right. So thank you, Charlie, for doing this. Thank you, Podville, for hooking this up, and Metal Lark for taking care of the studios. And, of course, Christina Buswell, Adi Khan, and Sarah Abbott for producing. And we have a special executive producer who deserves no credit at all.
Come on.
If you recognize his name, that's all the credit he gets. All right. Bye.
This is the Domonique Foxworth Show.